We're back. Yep, long one. Metropolitan Economic Development Committee from last week. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, too. I will have timestamps at the bottom because the first 11, 12 minutes is going to be about appointing people. So let's just get into it.
Good evening. I will now call to order the Metropolitan and Economic Development Committee to order for Monday, November 18th. We'll begin with introductions.
Loving Maggie Luz's new hairstyle. I don't know, Maggie. I like it, though.
Of my colleagues on the first row.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Derek Cahill, District 23.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Paul Hart, District 20.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian Mowry, District 25.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nick Roberts, District 4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kristen Jones, District 18.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brianne Delaney, District 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. Ron Gibson, District 8.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Barth, representing District 7.
Thank you. My name is Maggie Lewis, District 5. The first item on our agenda is proposal number 325, reappoints Lana Cosby Jones to the Woodruff Place Economic Improvement District Board. If you would like to come forward and state why you're interested in continuing to serve in this capacity.
Yes, hi, thank you. I've lived in Woodruff Place for 4 years. I've been on the EID board for 3. It's been a really good way for me to give back to the neighborhood that I really love. It's been a good place to raise my family, so I would love to continue doing that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, comments from councilors? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to proposal number 325? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we send proposal number 325 to the full council for final adoption.
The motion's been properly moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your...
Oh, look, jobless Jared decided to show up for work today.
Our next proposal is proposal number 362, reappoints Ms. Neely to the City Market Corporation Board of Directors.
The dude has no job and he lives with his parents and he can't even show up to work on time. Why is this guy even elected?
Do we know if she was coming today? Okay. Consent to move this to the bottom of the agenda. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 364, reappoints Julie Burns to the Indianapolis Community Food Access Advisory Commission.
What?
Good evening.
What the fuck is that?
A little bit about why you're interested in serving in this capacity.
Sure. I'm Julie Burns, and I'm the CEO of Jump In for Healthy Kids, and we are an initiative that has been working in the food access space for about 10 years, and the original work that created this commission, the actual design of how the commission would function, started with a work group that I began. And so in this work, we've been very interested in seeing the progress of how the commission can support improving the food system within our community, and I'd like to continue that work.
Wonderful. Questions, comments from councilors? Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Leader. I know we have a full agenda. Would it be all right if I ask her a couple questions regarding her role? So given that, and given that there are food deserts around the city of Indianapolis, I'm kind of curious, has the committee had conversations or discussions regarding some of the methods or things that we should be doing differently to try to address those?
Sure. I think there are a number of system-based issues that the commission is looking at with other partners within the community. One of those is supporting the creation of a centralized food hub, which really would support smaller retailers in being able to access healthier, more affordable food in the neighborhoods. So that's one type of solution. There's been other work done on healthy corner stores with partners like Marion County Public Health. Jump In started those projects in 2017. So there's a number of pieces of that. I'm sure you're aware that in general, from just bringing a new grocery store in, it's much more of an economic perspective that has to be dealt with. And so
what she's saying is the grocery store needs to make money to keep even around, to have it around. So if you're not making money, guess what? It's leaving town. And if you have a bunch of assholes that are coming in there and stealing a bunch of stuff, guess what? They're leaving.
There are other smaller system-based pieces that can support that work, and we continue to look into other options.
Additional questions, comments? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to Proposal 364? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Gibson. The motion has been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your willingness to serve. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 365, appoints William Longus to the Woodruff Place Economic Improvement District Board. Good evening.
Hello.
You share a little bit why you're interested in serving in this capacity.
Yeah, I've lived in Woodruff Place 25 years. I have experience on Board of Zoning Appeals in another town I lived in. I've served on several committees in Woodruff Place, the foundation, and raised money for infrastructure, and that's basically what this is infrastructure money that we're looking to spend to improve the neighborhood.
Wonderful, thank you. Questions, comments from councilors? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to proposal number 365? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The motion has been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much, sir. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 366, reappoints Brian Barton to the Marion County Property Tax Assessment Board of Appeals. I believe Mr. Barton asked that we postpone this proposal to the next
Committee meeting?
Committee. So is there a motion to postpone? Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 367, reappoints Kathy Good to the Marion County Property Tax Assessment Board of Appeals. Mr. Clerk, do we know?
What, not nobody's showing up to their appointments? What the hell is going on?
She said she was on her way, so she might just be running late also.
Do I have consent to move this item to the bottom of our agenda?
God.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 368, reappoints Glenda Drake to the Board of Business and Neighborhood Services. Good evening. If you would like to share why you're interested in continuing to serve in this capacity.
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. I am still very dedicated to serving the city of Indianapolis. My family and I are residents on the far east side, is what we call it, in Warren Township. But during my last 4 years of being on the BNS board, I've learned a lot, and I've continued to be a champion for equity in our contract and permit process. One thing that I'm very excited to see through is the new animal shelter. So super excited to be part of the board and continue serving if you guys will have me.
Thank you so much. Questions, comments from council?
So, all right, Brianne, you're going to take a back seat for a second. What she's talking about is for these contracts, there's an ordinance where, like, I think it's depending on the size of the contract that you have to have equity on who fulfills the whole thing. So, like, if you have a project going on, you need to make sure you have enough black-owned businesses, enough veteran-owned, enough woman-owned, and then everybody else. And which is totally lame, total affirmative action hiring is what it is.
Councilor Delaney, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take this time to thank Ms. Drake for her service on the board, and I've had the opportunity to work with her professionally and recommend her fully to continue her term. Thank you.
Additional comments from councilors? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to proposal 368? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we send proposal number 368 to the full council for final adoption.
The motion has been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
serve. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 378, appoints Brent Lyle to the Metropolitan Development Commission.
Who are you?
Good evening. If you share a little bit about why you're interested in serving in this capacity.
Sure thing. So my name is Brent Lyle, and I am born and raised on the far east side of Indianapolis in Belinda Drake's area. And throughout my time, I've been fortunate to live on the far east side, downtown, Avon, so I really feel like I've been able to get a breadth of perspective across the city of Indianapolis and the surrounding counties.
Yeah, that's right.
But
now I
recently,
remember who that woman was. She ran for office. She ran for Indiana Senate a while back. Again, in 32. I don't know who it was, but whatever. Actually, there is some drama that apparently happened. Let's just keep going, though.
My experience as the Director of Economic Development at Flanner House has given me significant opportunities to interface with different organizations across the city, really serving underrepresented communities, and being able to be an advocate for the needs that are often not heard as loudly as they need to be. But in that capacity, I've been able to raise a significant amount of grant dollars to preserve home ownership affordability. We're working with food justice initiatives, among other different things that really impact specifically the 46208 zip code. So I'm thrilled to continue my life of service. And
yeah, she ran against Aaron Freeman. That's what I thought.
Wonderful. Questions, comments from councilors? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to Proposal 378? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we send proposal number 378 to the full council for final adoption.
Second. The motion has been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your willingness to serve. I'm going to go back to the top of the agenda. Proposal number 362 appoints Ms. Neely to the City Market Corporation Board of Directors. If you would share why you're interested in continuing to serve in this capacity.
Good afternoon, and my apologies for not being on time. So a long-time city person, so the city market, I have memories taking me all the way back when I had my first date there. And so to be a part of the transformation of the downtown area is something that I've been committed to as it relates to economic development and what it means not just for the community that is downtown, but those that will also come in and support it. And so I think my perspective of having been in the community, supporting the economic development, and also my current role of, again, working with Simon Property Group, I understand what the development looks like, but I also have a voice for those that really need to also be heard as it relates.
Simon Property Group, of course, you know, they have donated a lot of money to Democrats in Indy.
To what's coming back and being developed in this space, and what a great opportunity for me to continue to share my talents and commitment to making sure the voices are heard about the development that's coming down in our city.
Wonderful. Thank you. Questions, comments from councilors? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to proposal number 362? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Second. The motion has been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your willingness to serve. I believe that covers all of our appointments and reappointments for the evening. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 335, approves the establishment of the CSX redevelopment project area and CSX allocation area in connection with the proposed CSX building project. Wow.
Damn, that's a lot.
Actually hear proposal 335 and 345 together. 345 authorizes the issuance of the Economic Development Tax Increment Revenue Bond Series 202.
Awesome. Anyway, so I have the presentation, the link to the presentation below in the description. If any of you want to follow it.
Not to exceed $15 million. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Megan Vuksich. I'm the Director for the Department of Metropolitan Development. I'm just going to introduce this project and then turn it over to the developer to give an overview of the full details of the proposal before you. But the project before you is for the issuance of tax increment revenue bonds.
TIF.
The proceeds of the bonds will be provided to the applicant for the purposes of redeveloping a functionally obsolete property into a new mixed-use project. And so this would include a live music venue with 4,000 person capacity, a boutique hotel with approximately 170 rooms, street-level retail, a restaurant, and pedestrian bridge connecting to Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The project will be located in the proposed CSX development project area and allocation area. The proceeds of the bonds will be used to pay costs associated with the construction of the project. In the redevelopment plan, as a part of the proposed allocation area, there is anticipated to be a forgivable loan from the downtown consolidated TIF. This loan is to be given over a 3-year period and will be used to fund infrastructure and other TIF-eligible amenities associated with the project. This is scheduled to be on the MDC agenda on December 18th for approval. Just to go over some of the employment and business opportunities that this development will bring.
Hey, key word, opportunity. Nothing is guaranteed. This is an opportunity for these employment numbers.
Indianapolis. So this will activate a previously inactive area through the demolition of the CSX building. So this did receive IHPC approval for the demolition and for construction of the new project already. Providing additional density and commercial activity to the neighborhood, the hotel and live entertainment venue will drive foot traffic to local restaurants, shops, and attractions, boosting economic opportunities for local businesses.
Yeah, I'm sure.
This venue will provide more opportunities to host entertainment and special events, increasing tourism in Indianapolis, and will strengthen downtown as a livable neighborhood, destination, and place for businesses.
It's not.
The entertainment venue will help foster.
I will tell you what, right now, they think like, oh, this is going to be so much better for businesses. The only people that this will benefit are bar owners and maybe restaurants, but it will also increase their rent because everybody's like, oh, look, now we have somewhere to go. The popularity gains up, which means that you're worth more, which means your rent is going to go up, which means the food prices and the booze prices are going to go up, in which actually this might kill more businesses than it actually helps out.
A dynamic cultural scene that can make downtown more attractive to residents and tourists, adding to our city's cultural and social vibrancy. This project will also incorporate public art per the Public Art for Neighborhoods Ordinance. The improved amenities and infrastructure can spur further private investment in the surrounding area, which we've already seen a lot of investment along Georgia Street with Signia Hotel and the improvements the city's making.
Thank you, taxpayers.
But even additional private investment in South Downtown. And the project will support an estimated 379 full-time construction jobs. Those would be temporary construction jobs, and then 210 permanent jobs upon the completion of the project. So we're very pleased with the proposed development. DMD staff is supportive. The applicant and developer is Boxcar Development, LLC. Phil Bate with Ice Miller is the developer's representative. I will turn it over to Phil and the Boxcar team to give the full presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the council, Madam Chair. I'm Phil Bate, representative of Boxcar tonight. I have with me Melody Park and Matt Gabbett. Melody and Matt will make the initial presentation and we'll all be available to answer questions.
Oh, these people. Not on the website.
Good evening, councilors. I think some of you know me from the previous position I held at the city, but thank you for allowing Boxcar to present tonight on this exciting new project. As Megan mentioned, the fact that this functionally obsolete building has been not used for the last 25 years. It is at the corner of Pennsylvania and Georgia Street. It's 1.8 acre site. And at this moment, one of the reasons it's functionally obsolete was used as a storage. So if you go in there, it's literally 11 foot by 11 foot by 11 foot, column to column to column. So there's no way of redeveloping it and using it for the future use, anything but storage. So what we see for the next step, the future of that corner is going to be a 170-room hotel. Done by Shinola, 4,000-person live venue done by Live Nation, and then retail space in between. Next. The project cost at this time is $319 million. We expect to start the project right now. We did start on the asbestos remediation already, and we'd like to continue that starting winter. Again, 170 room plus 4,000 person venue, and then 253 parking garage, 2 levels down from the street level. And the entrance, there will be 2 entrances, one off of the Pennsylvania in between the music venue and the hotel, and the other one off of the Scioto alleyway street. So we have 2 access points. We are wanting to amplify the city, state economic development money by building this beautiful space within.
Okay, so obviously this makes sense. Here's an Indy Star article from September. Boxcar Development LLC, an investment group led by Herb Simon, who's the owner of the Indiana Pacers, and the rest of the Simon family will develop an upscale Shinola hotel, the one that they're talking about right here. So where does the skywalk go into? Gainbridge. So people can stay here at the hotel and then just walk to Pacer Stadium. This is obviously a giant money scheme that the taxpayers have to float over because it's a TIF. And for those who don't know what a TIF is, if there's a blighted area, the city and a bunch of departments will designate certain areas into a TIF area, tax increment financing. And how it usually works is that you'll have a blighted area, and then some developer will come in there and they'll get tax incentives. But this is the biggest problem. That means this area, however big or however small the TIF area, the TIF designation is, those tax dollars don't go back to the city. It goes into a TIF fund. Which is only used for doing some infrastructure shit or whatever, but it's a giant scam for taxpayers. But here's the big problem: not all TIFs pay off. And last time I checked, there's more negative TIFs than there are positive TIFs going into that fund. And who has to refill the fund? The taxpayers. So it's all fun and all great and dandy, but when it doesn't work, man, do we get fucked. And basically what it is, it's a gamble, and the taxpayers have to pay the fee.
In the heart of downtown. We expect to be one of the anchor in between the convention center and the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. We see obviously the Signia Hotel. We'd like to create this same space within this 1.8-acre site. Next.
Why can't I find them?
So we know that the city has a goal for the OMWBE participation. We have been working with that office to make sure that we have a utilization plan.
That's the Office of Minority Women and Black-owned businesses, basically.
That
I can't wait to hear about this.
Expectation and the goals. Next. As we mentioned, the permanent job and the construction job. The construction job will be created between the winter all the way to the fall of 2027.
It's going to take 3 years.
Next. We have many community support, but I just added the 2 important ones, the counselor, as well as Chris Gall from Visit Indy. And then we do have others, Downtown Indy, and others have been giving us support letters for this project. This is the pretty picture that you wanted to see. Obviously, this one is from the northeast side looking towards southwest. And we do have the bridge that will connect the Gainbridge Fieldhouse to the hotel that allows us to have a full connectivity all the way to the Live Nation venue. Next.
This is really new.
This one is the retail space between the Live Nation venue as well as the Shinola, giving us an opportunity to have retail space that connects to the street. Next. This is the Live Nation venue. Our VIP entrance will be towards the south where the bridge is. Well, actually, if you go down.
It is the development arm of the, yeah, okay, so this is just confirming what I said. And the Boxcar Development LLC is the development arm of the Simon family that owns the Pacers, the Fever, the Pacers Sports Entertainment, and now it's $300 million. Okay, so man, are they just fucking double dipping? This is the worst ever. I hate these people. These people are the worst, man. They just all right. I'm just very upset of how bad the taxpayers are getting fucked on this because we have to float the bill so they can make the money.
Right now there is a stairway that goes up to the CSX. That's where the location of the Live Nation VIP entrance will be. Next. So I'll have Matt come up and talk about the financial aspect.
Hello, thank you. As Melody described, this is a $319 million project, so this is a very expensive project and one that is still an absolutely needs the incentive dollars to make it feasible. The reason for that is the site, so the cost of purchasing the site, then the demolition of a very structurally secure building in the old CSX building. We have between debt and the requested incentives, that still leaves around $100 million of equity that the sponsor is willing to put into this deal. And without the requested incentives, the return levels, which are already well below market, don't even come close. So even with the incentives, it is still significantly below what a developer would typically pursue.
So basically, hey, we're not making enough money that we would like to see. We're only getting hundreds of million dollars where we want to get more than hundreds of millions of dollars. We're just not there. So we need to make sure that we make more and you get less.
Luckily, in this case, the sponsor is very committed to this project. Like I said, putting in $100 million and cares about the legacy that this project is leaving and also enhancing and creating an entertainment district for downtown. Any questions?
Does that conclude your presentation?
It does conclude the presentation. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your presentation. Questions, comments from Councilor Barth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we spend a little more time on what the TIF dollars will be spent for? I understand, and I had some emails, so thank you to the director for answering all my questions separately, but I wanted to explore this a little bit. The TIF dollars will be spent on remediation and demolition, but also there's this element of the garage I'd like to understand. The garage has, if you could explain why Live Nation requires that it needs to be at grade, therefore it has to go underground, so that's going to raise the cost a little bit. I just want to make sure I understand the public dollars are going into that.
Sure. We initially designed the project with the Live Nation component being above a two-level parking garage. They determined that from a logistics and an operational point of view, that was not going to be feasible for multiple reasons. The first reason is that due to security reasons, they need to bring people into the building pretty much at grade level and then have most of those patrons be at grade level. Having them move vertically through the building was both very, very expensive and difficult from a security point of view before they got them checked in. Second, to put the facility above grade two stories high meant that all of the multiple semis full, plural, of equipment that is needed for a show, often 6, 8, 10 semi-trucks, we would have to have created internally for the people an escalator system to get them vertically up to above the garage. And literally for the semi-trucks, we would have had to build 2 elevators to lift 2 semi-trucks at a time up to the upper level, unload them, bring them down, new ones up, et cetera. That was, we stopped thinking about that and our brains exploded at around $12 million. And Live Nation wasn't happy with it. They didn't even want to do the deal with it in the air. So we brought it to grade, but bringing it to grade meant we had to go 2 levels underground to get the same number of parking spaces. That meant we had to be right up against the CSX elevated rail line and the Kite garage, which added cost. It means that we have to have a more sophisticated system to retain water and to have our electrical vault and related equipment there. It also meant that we had to have more extensive shoring and other work that had to be done subterraneanly. So what became a necessity for that project for Live Nation turned into a very, very, very expensive underground parking garage, but it allows Live Nation to be there to operate and for us not to have to lift semi-trailers up in the air. Notwithstanding, there are certain people on TV who do that as lawyers, but we can't do that.
And so,
cute.
Just for my own clarity, so Boxcar will own this in this venue, and Live Nation will operate it and program it. Is that correct?
Live Nation will lease the building from Boxcar and will operate the facility, yes.
And there's probably no one here to answer this question, but since I represent 45 and the Vogue, I've gotten more sophisticated in my understanding of the entertainment industry, and they've explained to me the process of bringing bands in and nurturing them over time and having them come back to Indianapolis year in and year out. Can anybody at all speak to the Live Nation, where this clicks in for them as far as venues downtown and as far as venues in Indianapolis and the kind of quality acts they could bring to Indianapolis versus now?
I don't know that I can answer all of that, but I can say that city officials were keenly interested in making sure that Live Nation did not cannibalize other venues in Indianapolis. And we had a study done by Live Nation to demonstrate that the kind of acts that they are bringing are acts that don't have a place here because they fit in a niche that we don't have a venue to match up for them. So the concept that Live Nation has is that they are building a series of these concert venues around the country. Their goal is to have 40 of them. They're at 8 to 12 at the moment in terms of either open or in the planning or construction stages. And they would have a group of artists that would rotate among those venues and be able to entertain the public and attract patrons throughout the country. Now, given, certain kinds of acts are more interesting in certain venues than others in parts of the country, but in general, they believe that they have a very underserved market throughout the United States, and they intend to capitalize on that by building as many as 40 of these venues around the country.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You're hit on what I was worried about. I was thinking about venues of similar size. I mean, both the Hi-Fi and the Vogue will be smaller, but I would have some concerns about the city subsidizing one particular venue over another if they're going to be going for the same market. And it sounds like what you just described is a completely different market.
We were all very concerned about that, as were city officials and state officials, and they all asked us to generate that study and to demonstrate that. And so we have done that, and they've assured us that this is not a market. They're not going to be cannibalizing the market with the talent they're bringing in.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Because one's low market and the other one's high market. You're not going to be bringing, Jolly Roll over to the Vogue. No, you're going to be bringing them over to that hotel.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Additional questions? Leader Mowry.
Yes, Leader.
Thank you, Madam Leader. My big question here is, we just had this whole Signia hotel that we kind of fell back in our laps. You don't foresee a similar circumstance with this, do you?
In terms of falling it,
where we had to come in and be like the builders of it, basically, because the developer couldn't get it done?
No, that won't happen here.
Okay, good to hear. And then kind of just a random question, but when you say Shinola, is that like the Shinola of Detroit, the watchmakers?
It is. They have a great consumer brand, and they have brick and mortar stores. This hotel will have a Shinola store in the corner at Penn and Georgia Street. They started a joint venture with a major hotel operating company called Sage, and they have created 5 brands of hotels that they are going to develop and operate around the country, with Shinola being the upper end of that brand. They have one in Detroit, and that's doing very, very well. It is a market leader in Detroit, and so we are going to be probably the second Shinola hotel. And as a result, when you go to this hotel, not only will there be retail available there, but the rooms themselves will be evocative of the Shinola brand. They have consumer products, they have watches, clocks, leather goods. That thematic presentation will be in many of the places in the hotel. It'll be fun. It'll be nice.
It'll be fun. It'll be great.
Yeah, we've identified a national firm that will be undertaking the design. They just spent 2 days in Detroit to look at that facility. They designed a very interesting space for a hotel called the Maven in Denver, and we brought them in to be the designers of this project as well.
Awesome. That's great to hear. I'm a big fan of Shinola anyway. I've got a few myself, so looking
There you
forward
go.
to it.
You know what? I did not wear my Shinola watch tonight. I should have. You got one
Should
on.
have
There you go.
represented.
Yeah.
How
I will
much are
tell a quick
those?
story if I could, and that is the owner of that, the principal of Shinola is a guy named Tom. I'll just call him Tom. And he was the founder with his brother of Fossil watches.
Jeez.
Name is Tom Kartsotis. And he sold
Dude,
that.
check out these
He wanted to do
watches.
something different and interesting in his life, but still relating to marketing and branding.
10% off.
And so he decided he wanted to
the
start a
hell
new consumer
spends
brand,
that much
but
money
do
on
it
a
in a city
watch?
that really had a great need for new jobs and
Dude, I
economic
guess all that
development.
hush
And so
money
he
is
picked
working out
Detroit,
well for Maori.
and he decided he wanted to do watches and bikes and sort of one-off things, which was great. And people kept telling him, "You don't know shit from Shinola," if I could say that here publicly. And he became aware, I just did, he became aware of the availability to purchase the Shinola brand name. So he did, and he named his company that. So there we are.
Councilor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to make a quick comment and a quick question. I really appreciate you guys building intentional density downtown. I think hotels, as we've seen, are always at occupancy for our current hotels, and always great to build more. One question I had on here is you mentioned the quote-unquote co-marketing opportunities and synergies with Pacers basketball. Is that a financial partnership, or is it more just a kind of just you're working together right now? How have they been involved in this project? Thank you.
Dude, they own the fucking company.
The intention is to work closely together to create, for example, VIP packages where someone would be able to rent a room at Shinola Hotel, get 2 tickets to the game, park in the garage, have an experience, possibly also a package that could include a cocktail reception in the hotel before the game. Those kinds of things we think are going to be important, not huge, but it'll create a new way of experiencing the game and create and connect people to the hotel, and hopefully bring people from a little bit further away who would otherwise not come to a game but be able to spend the night and have a good experience in Indianapolis.
Dude, you fucking dope. Boxcar is owned by Simon. The Pacers are owned by Simon. This is just another money scam. Hey, why don't we have this great package? But just go to our hotel, since you're already giving us money. Go to our stadium, which is already our stadium, and visit our team, which is already our team. It's just a giant monopoly. They got their own little Pacers area. This is really no different than like the Patriots. They're just trying to duplicate the whole thing.
I'm glad to hear that, because I think a lot of us, even 15, 20 years ago, going to Pacers games, and even Lucas Oil to some degree, there was very, very little around the stadium. And I think building that, as we've seen in other cities, building that intentional stadium-based development around a stadium goes a long way, and it builds an entire neighborhood there. So I appreciate you guys doing that there, and appreciate you guys partnering with the Pacers on that.
Thank you.
You know what's going to happen now? They're going to probably be like, hey, you know what? We're getting so many more people, so which means we need more security. And so to get more security, we'll have to hire outside security because we don't have enough police officers, which means we'll have to raise the taxes in this entertainment zone, kind of like what they want to do with the soccer stadium or how they want to do with Miles Square. This is just so predictable, really. It's like the more stuff that you have, the more complicated things get. It's literally that simple.
Yep, Councilor Evans, then Councilor Gibson.
But this is the problem when you have some dipshit kid in there that lives with his parents, has no full-time job, has zero responsibility, but just can't understand the concept because he's been groomed for this position for so long.
Thank you. Phil, just real quick to understand the loan, that's a forgivable loan, so not being paid back, right?
That would be correct, yes.
Being utilized for the parking garage?
Primarily parking garage, demo.
Hold on, let's hear that one more time, folks. Let's hear that one more time.
And the project is...
Guys are doing that there.
Gibson.
Thank you. Phil, just real quick to understand the loan, that's a forgivable loan, so not being paid back, right?
Yeah, it's a loan that's not being paid back. Just remember that.
That would be correct, yes.
Being utilized for the parking garage?
Primarily parking
How
garage,
much is it
demo,
anyway?
underground water retention, those sorts of things.
Okay.
Yes.
And the project is from Georgia Street to the railroad tracks?
All the way down, yeah.
All the way down, in between the Pennsylvania and, I don't know what
It goes to the alley, which is named Scioto Street, yeah.
Okay, yep. All right, I just want to make sure I was clear about that. I'm really excited about the project. We know one of the things I feel like I've learned since being on the council is our downtown is such an economic hub, not just for the city, but for the state of Indiana.
It's the capital of the state, dummy.
And this is not so much a comment towards you, but to our director. I do feel like this is a missed opportunity in some ways. If the pandemic taught us anything, we cannot be a downtown as hotels. We have to have people living downtown. And I would have loved to have seen this thing going up 20, 30 stories tall with the residential component a part of it. Georgia Street, I think, did have an opportunity, possibly on the other end near the Signia, to build some sort of component down there with living. We've got to have sustainability, and we may not have another pandemic in my lifetime, but that is one thing that's come out of that lesson, is that we do need to become a downtown, and people living here constantly staying at our restaurants and things of that nature. So other than that, I'm really excited about the project and happy to support it tonight. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Phil, I haven't seen you in a long time. It's always good to see you, an attorney with a lot of credibility, and so I'm very supportive of this project. As a matter of fact, when I see the renderings, the photos, it's absolutely beautiful. My question to you, Phil, and others, is that I guess it's scheduled to start fall of this year, and you said you're in conversations with the city about the OMWBE, and I'm very I'm concerned about that because I want to know where we stand primarily on MBE, and then how fast you can pick up the pace in terms of trying to get a goal set there.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm going to have Melody talk to that. We've already made some progress on XBE generally, but we're really on it, absolutely on it. So Melody, please.
So early stages, like the environmental and soils consultants, they have all been XBE participant, Care Media being the WBE, Sage Environmental being the MBE, and then we had other design team members that met the goal of the 15, 8, 3, and 1%. I don't have the list in front of me, but the design leads Populace as well as Ratio knows the goals of the city of Indianapolis, especially the fact that Populace worked on the Gainbridge renovation. They know the goals well, and they have exceeded it, and including Shield, construction manager, they worked on the Gainbridge as well, and they have exceeded the OMWBE participation by 34%.
Well, that gives me a whole lot of encouragement, so thank you for that. And then my final question is, what about union participation?
Right now, we haven't hired any construction crews yet, so we'll make sure that we are having the participation. Sheila is very well aware, and they've been working with the OMWBE, and they have a representative as well, and I'll also be representing the owner's rep for the OMWBE. So we will have pre-construction meetings so that we have participation from the union, from the minority firms, as well as the veterans.
Thank you.
Councilor Delaney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The presentation stated that there are state incentives that are being sought, and I was hoping that you could address what those are and how that plays into the project.
Yes, we've applied for redevelopment tax credits. This building is a classic building for redevelopment tax credits, which are old buildings that either are going to be reused or can't be reused and something new is put on the site. So we've received an award letter from the state for $33 million of tax credits, 10 million of which is to be repaid. We're in the process of documenting that, and we're on the docket for the December meeting of the IEDC board to address and finalize that part of the project.
Thank you, taxpayers.
That's not cash, it's a tax credit which has to be monetized.
Additional comments from councilors? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to proposal number 335 or 345? Thank you so much. I'll entertain a motion for proposal 335. Councilor Gibson. There is a motion. Is there a second? The motion has been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. I'll entertain a motion for proposal 345.
Thank you, everybody.
345? Yep. The motion's been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your presentation.
So this is kind of interesting. All right, so I'm going to have to dig into this more, but it looks like Sage got bought up by Terracon. And so if they leave Sage as where it's at and they say, oh, well, it's a minority-owned business, but then you're owned actually by Terracon, which isn't, it's just another scam. It's all. I've been saying that for a long time, though.
Councilors, if you're okay, I would like to go back to proposal number 367. 367 reappoints Kathy Good to the Marion County Property Tax Assessment Board of Appeals. Do I have consent?
Consent.
Thank you. I thought she was here. Is she here? Ms. Good? Yep.
What are you, new?
If you just briefly want to share why you're interested and continue to serve in this capacity?
Oh, my God. What is going on here?
Yes, no, she's not here? You say yes, no, so no? Okay, then moving back.
Jeez.
Let me know if she is here. The next item on our agenda, I apologize, councilors, I got a note that she was in the chambers. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 346, approves the statement of benefit for Rocky Mountain Energy Holding, LLC. Is it Peregrine Energy Solution, LLC, for tax abatement?
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is Kathy Battle. I'm Program Manager for Economic Incentives with DMD. I'm here to introduce and present a project located within the Dow Elanco TIF, located at 4025 West 86th Street. The project is in Pike Township. This project does have support from Councilor Robinson and staff. Peregrine Energy Solutions is proposing to develop a battery energy storage systems facility on the city's west side. The initial investment is going to be $144 million in personal property equipment, and their ask is for a 5-year personal property tax abatement at 51% savings. In lieu of job creation, because the site will be remotely monitored, they will donate 5% of their tax savings to workforce initiatives that will go towards energy tech, in the energy tech field. I'm going to ask or introduce Kevin Conger and then Benton Blaine.
How is nobody talking about that?
Tell you more about the project.
This is the first I'm hearing about it.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, we're excited to be here tonight. I'm sure many of you have questions about what a BESS or ESS system are. Don't worry, that's the first thing that we're going to tackle. My name's Benton Blaine, Cushman & Wakefield. I help Peregrine Energy Solutions site these across the country. So fortunate enough to present this tonight. This is Kevin Conger. He's the project manager, so he's the guy you're going to see for the next decade working this project at least. So with that being said, we're going to kind of walk through tonight what this project is, what it's not, and some of the goals of it. So I know you do questions at the end, but given this is a little different, you know, at Madam Chair's discretion, if you want to jump in, if there's something unusual, we can tackle that, or we can do it at the end.
No, sir. Just your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to talk a little bit about Peregrine Energy, and if we'll go to the next slide, and what an ESS system is.
Yes, good evening. I'm Kevin Conger. So Peregrine Energy Solutions was formed in 22, basically handpicked of all of the industry experts in battery energy storage. So it is a young company, but it is the dream team for energy storage projects. So what we focus on is developing these facilities that fit into smaller spaces that other energy projects couldn't fit in. So if we go to the next slide, it'll show you kind of the overall picture of how battery energy storage fits into the overall picture. So it is energy agnostic. So whether you're focused on natural gas, coal, or solar and wind, these facilities will benefit you by storing electricity during times where there's excess energy on the grid, and then discharging that energy back into the grid during times of peak demand. So these operate on a daily cycle, so they charge and discharge every day. And most of the time what we see, if we go to the next slide, is that peak demand window is a late afternoon, early evening when everybody's getting home from work, kids are getting home from school, you're turning on the air conditioning in the summer, heat in the winter. And when everybody in a community is doing that, it causes the energy demand to spike. And if you see from the graph, solar is on the decline, wind hasn't picked back up. So battery energy storage is really where you rely for that energy, other than having massive price spikes. So if we go to the next slide, we can see some pictures of what a typical battery container looks like. The height of these is about 9 to 10 feet, depending on what kind of groundwork we have to do underneath of them.
Jeez, they have a lot of
So they're not very visible. It's not the size of a structure. They will look very much like a fancy shipping container that is protected from the elements. There's nothing inside that somebody has to go into to conduct work on. All of these are exterior facing panels and doors, so nobody has to worry about going inside. And
yeah, look how many fucking people there are. That's crazy.
Just a brief shot of our company leadership. I mentioned it was handpicked and created solely to focus on the energy storage side of the equation. So next slide. So why Indianapolis? As we all know, the energy demand is constantly growing, whether it's in our own homes or companies increasing their computing capabilities or even data centers coming into the area. And right now, what this energy storage facility would do, it would add to, not replace, what you currently have. So this is another tool for Indianapolis in their toolbox to use when handling energy demand needs.
Well, you said it's done remotely.
Yeah. Some brief background on it. We're purchasing the site from St. Vincent's Hospital. This is part of an excess piece of land that they had. If you look on the far right, you'll see New Hope of Indiana and Compass US. It's part of that same parcel, but they weren't able to divest it because it's not the most convenient parcel to build on. I like to refer to it as a Tetris-shaped piece of land. And really what this facility will do is it'll use that piece of land that not many other people would be able to develop on for something that would benefit the local community.
One thing that I didn't hear, just so you can see, if we can go back one slide, all the green space on the south side of that, all those trees is part of the parcel that is being retained as green space, so all those heritage oaks and the trees remain. So if you look at this, we're less than 50% of the acreage on that site gets disturbed. On a dollar-for-dollar basis in that portion of the city, that now becomes the kind of highest CapEx per acre in there, because if you look at it that way, you're disturbing how many acres there?
Approximately 15 to 18.
So 15 to 18 acres for 165 million in CapEx. So we're right at 10 to 12 million per acre. So even with the abatement numbers, this still has a very high CapEx per acre. So it's generating a significant amount of property taxes. If you compare that on the side, on the upper left-hand, adjacent to us, that's outside storage units. So that's generating, I think it's taxed at sub $1 million. You can see that's roughly half the size of this on assessed value, where we're going to be north of 165.
And the last bullet on that slide, just do want to highlight that it won't add any traffic to the area. It's remotely monitored. As was mentioned earlier, it's not creating jobs, but it is eliminating any kind of traffic demand. It doesn't place additional demands on schools or any other public services. Once it's built and that vegetation is in place around it, you won't hear it, you won't see it, you won't smell it, you'll forget that it's even there.
Yeah. The goal is on the south side as well. We're going to preserve as many of the existing trees. The best buffer you have is the one that's already built. That's that nice mature tree you can't see through. So in doing this, the goal is to preserve as much of that as possible. Keep this green space. Last time I was out there, there's a awesome 8-point buck on the south side of that site. So it gets to keep living there, but the rest of that stays green in perpetuity.
Next slide, please. This is just an overhead view. It's not the prettiest rendering you'll see tonight, but it shows you just how low to the ground they are and how minimal of an impact this facility would have. Next.
One other question as we work through this, use as many local subcontractors as we can. So your subcontractors will be your gate, grading, concrete, aggregate, fencing, some of your electrical. A lot of the electrical, though, this is highly specialized. So they're going to travel in. When they travel in to construct, it takes about a year to construct. About 100 employees do it on average. They're going to be staying at your local hotels, eating out at your restaurants during construction.
Oh, my God.
There will be sub 1 hour. In this case, it'll probably be less than that. There will be a local point of contact that services the facility and remains it. Based on geographically why we can't commit that that company would be here, it likely will be, because this is going to be your main employment hub. So you will have an on-site person that can get there in sub an hour at any given time. From a CapEx perspective, again, the abatement only on the equipment. It's not on the real property. We've minimized this and condensed it. This is going to compete nationally against other ESS projects. Only ask for what we need to get this approved via finance. So you see a fairly minimum number there. Coordinating with Talent Bound and employ Indy, so 5% of that funnels them. We're prepaying some of that number. We're going to try to get that to people in the energy field. Again, not picking green energy versus traditional energy. At the end of the day, we need more across the board. So just more electricians, more people in the service department as well. One other thing that we like to do, and we're coordinating with an employee Indy on that, and also with the Talent Bound program, is getting their project managers as they go through development of this to get, there's a high school quite close by, to get some of the project managers to go to the high school, and can we get some of the high schoolers to go over there, vice versa. So we see some of the new cutting edge projects that the high schoolers can see and touch if they choose to go into those fields. So you can still work on cool projects, as an electrician. So that's something that we're standing up as well. So we're asking for a 5-year, 50% abatement only on the personal, not the real. Halfway through the rezoning schedule, and the one last week actually went very well. I think, give credit where credit's due, meeting with the township early and often, doing the educational classes, have went through and worked with they're a year into the rezoning process to understand, because this project is different, how it should be structured and how it works. So I think touching base early really made that a lot simpler. So on the tail end of that, any red flags so far?
None.
So moving through that, and that'll come to fruition very soon. Otherwise, we really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions? Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Leader. Really excited about this project. I just leaned over to Chairman Robinson and said, man, you got a great project in your district. And I really appreciate the emphasis that's put on preserving those heritage trees and trees in general. That's not something we often see with developments that come before us, so that's greatly appreciated. I do just want to ask, is there any, that's energy, obviously, so is there any concerns over, how do you treat something like this if it should explode, or how big of an explosion?
I think there's a fire department right there.
So that's one of the things that we've been working with the fire department on, and how to respond. And
So I looked it up too. So I don't know why this address gave me it over here. It's actually, this is going to be the lot. I'm sure that you guys can see it. Okay, so this is where the lot is going to be, and the fire department's right here in case something happens. So, that's good. I'm not going to lie. That is really good that that's even happening. Oops. Screwed up.
when we begin construction, we'll do some on-site training for them as well. But really, if these containers do catch fire, the typical response is to let that one container burn and make sure that the fire doesn't spread.
You spray water on the ones adjacent to keep them cool. There is a fire department adjacent to this site.
Yes.
So there will be training. It's from a firefighter perspective, it's defensive versus offensive. So you're not going into a structure. They'll take a defensive position in that, spray the adjacent sites. with water. There's not a water contamination issue if you spray the adjacent ones. Again, we're talking about something that has an extremely remote, minute chance of happening, but it is a very valid question. So if they do catch on fire, it's very similar to what you would find in a house fire. But we addressed these questions in the last meeting. You have 4 levels of redundancy, systems that would have to fail to get to that point.
I think the most important one would be the predictive analytics that we use in the software to monitor and maintain it. If you go to Google or YouTube and search for best fires, you're going to find them. But with the predictive analytics that we use, most of those fires would never happen. Because if any of those cells begins to operate differently, we know that it requires some on-site personnel to go and check it and make sure that that cell is serviceable, or if it's not serviceable, to remove it and make sure it doesn't catch fire.
Leader Mowry.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councilor Evans. That was one of my questions, because I remember there was an accident with a Tesla over by IU Health Campus a handful of years back, and the firefighters had trouble putting that out. Is it the same kind of battery that you're using in that, or?
Great question.
So they're both lithium-ion, ION. It's kind of the overall broad category. Most EVs use lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt, or NMC, if you see it. It's a much denser solution, but because these are stationary and they don't require the batteries to be as compact, we're able to use lithium iron phosphate, which it takes a much larger footprint, but it's much more resilient to heat and thermal runaway and things of that nature.
What's the life of one of these batteries?
Each container we expect to have a life of about 20 years, but throughout the time, we're going to augment the site to make sure that we're able to meet the same energy capacity.
Okay, and
What's
then
the
what happens
degradation
at the end of the life of this battery?
We recycle it.
Because it's my understanding from people I've spoken with that are in that field, once those batteries are shot, it's basically almost like a nuclear waste where you have to put it into a certain area to make sure it doesn't get contaminated elsewhere.
Good question.
No, the only hazardous waste cleanup I could see happening is after one of them catches fire.
Okay.
But as far as recycling goes, it's not.
So you now have facilities coming on, similar to what we did with the solar when they first came out. We didn't have a good use for solar panels at end of life, but now that they're starting to come out, that works. Same thing with batteries. So you've got a facility in South Carolina that is now operational, North Carolina and Oklahoma. These are private companies. That's just the state where they're going to be at. Have facilities opening up in 2026. These are full of precious metals, so they can be recycled in the end.
Okay, great.
You know what's funny? I always think about this. What's the energy that it takes to do the recycling compared to just building a new one? It's like, okay, I'm going to spend X amount of time, X amount of man hours on, say, just rebuilding something. And what is the cost of just getting a new one? And then just the disposal waste, the fees on that, the zoning on this. There's a lot of questions, obviously, and I've looked into this for a long time.
And then this is going to be actually my first question, but since I was kind of piggybacking off Councilor Evans' question, I guess I'm a little confused on exactly what this is going to do. I mean, does this put energy back into the grid for people to use? And I mean, how do they access that? How does that become used?
Correct. It goes back into the grid. It'll be connected to the AES Indiana substation that would be on site, and from there it goes back into the system.
Okay.
And to augment that, in the U.S., we don't have an issue making enough power if you look at a 24-hour window. We make plenty, a lot more than enough, actually. The problem is we can't always make the power when we need it. So to his point, if you look at it this way, in the summer at 3 in the morning, there's a nice breeze, it's cool, most municipal buildings and schools are closed, most companies, maybe manufacturing plant, that's offline. Well, we still have all our power plants, and they can still produce power. You fill the batteries up in the middle of the night. Now, 4:30 in the afternoon, every municipal building, school, manufacturing plant's on, and everybody's home AC just kicked on at the same time. That's peak grid usage. So we're taking power from when there's excess and putting that onto the grid when there's a shortage.
Okay.
Otherwise, you got to build a lot more power plants.
Okay, so, and is this kind of similar to, I know some homes will have like a similar battery system at their home where it'll store energy for them during low hours and then it kicks on to keep their energy bill down, but this is just a large scale version of that?
Correct. So this holds about 20,000 houses worth of power.
Okay, thank you.
That's always the big issue with like the wind farms or the solar farms, is that it's just on-demand power. There is no way to store it. And I've been saying that for years now, ever since I got into this, like 10, 12 years ago. It's like, it's not that the panels are inefficient. It's just no way to store the energy. It's like eating, and then your body contains the energy for it, and then you burn it when you need it. Like, imagine how many fat people will be able to burn power a house.
Councilor Barth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two questions. One is, I've been reading about Bitcoin mining facilities in the South and the low level of noise that they cause for neighbors. Is there a noise level concern at all?
As far as noise goes, these
what's the decibel?
The majority of the noise just comes from the HVAC unit helping to keep it cool. So it would just be a humming. But with the distance and standoff between the property line and the equipment itself, as well as the vegetation that we're putting in, we're ensuring that none of the neighboring properties even hear it.
Okay. That's one. And then two is, in your presentation, it said I had a 40-year lifespan. So can this lifespan go beyond that if you continue to invest in the facility? Help me understand why there's a 40-year
So we plan for a 40-year life cycle because we expect in 40 years that there's going to be new technology. And if it happens at 20 years, 40 years, 60 years, whatever that new energy storage technology is, that's what we would change this to.
So one thing to add, I always look at it from a risk perspective. Minimal risk. At the end, we figure out how to beam electrons from space. I saw that the other day. They're going to do solar panels in space and beam it down. So let's say that works. Your batteries are recyclable. Your copper wires are underground. Those get recycled. This goes back to a flat graded pad. What's the more likely scenario? Much more likely. About 10% of their capital spend is infrastructure upgrades to the electrical grid in that substation. It is, in my opinion, as a site selector, unlikely that ever goes to raw dirt just because of the amount of electrical infrastructure you now have on site. So things like cold storage for food, any high energy usage, so that can be hospitals with CT scanners, food, anything that's running AI or high data center usage, things like that. I think something will always now end up on that site.
Oh, yeah, Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Michael
My first question, and I think I know the answer, but just want to confirm it. Who are your customers?
So energy follows the path of least resistance, so the majority of this energy would go to the surrounding community.
So as an AES?
We still have to work through that with AES Indiana as far as the financial offtake goes, but as far as where the electrons themselves go, it would be to the local area.
So do you want to explain that into how once it's on the grid?
So once it's on the grid, what we do is we would purchase the energy from AES Indiana and then also sell it back to AES Indiana. We could have various different structures for that, but
you could also do a direct offtake. So if there was someone in town that wanted to purchase a lot amount of power during peak times, they could also purchase it directly, but likely AES.
So this was interesting. All right, so it's not getting powered by solar or wind, so it's just taking the energy that AES is going to produce anyway and just store it in there. So this is just preventing blackouts, basically, right? Or overloading the system.
Okay. And I guess what I'm trying to get to also with this project is, how will it impact the energy costs for the residents of Indianapolis?
Probably nothing, if I had to guess.
Do 20,000 homes conceptually at this site. I mean, in and around that area, is there any direct impact on the folks that live there if they want to talk to AES about that?
Nothing that I could guarantee, but in theory, by reducing that peak demand, that means that AES Indiana wouldn't have to turn on as many peaker plants during those hours of high demand, and that would, in second, third order effects, reduce the overall price of energy. So I don't know if that explained
Did you guys have to go through the IURC for any of the work that you do?
That's the Indiana Energy Utility Commission, I think. Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission.
The Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission.
We're working through MISO right now. Yeah.
So MISO is the, who controls this section of the grid? Help me out with the acronym.
Mid-Continent Interconnection Service Operator, or Independent System Operator.
So that controls a multi-state region because they're connecting to the multi-state grid. So in that situation, you don't work with them, you work with MISO instead. That's the controlling body that we would report to.
So can you sell your energy outside of Indianapolis then?
I guess theoretically you could, but it would be...
It would hurt.
Yeah.
Financially.
Because it's such a limited range. Like, well, I mean, you could. Well, that's a DC system. AC doesn't really matter that much. Just thinking out loud, like if you would, as a DC system, like the longer you go, the less energy you would get as like a voltage drop. So that's why it's only contained in 20,000 homes, because a battery is a direct current, not an alternating current.
I guess what I still don't comprehend is
what's the point?
Buying energy from AES and selling it back to AES.
Good point.
Good question, Michael Paul Hart. Good question.
So energy is bought and sold on the daily market, and it's based on the hours. So if you do what's called a spot market, and by the way, does anybody remember the snowstorm that hit Texas a year or two ago?
That was going to be my point. Hey, did I just not say that? Like the whole point of this whole battery storage is so you don't have blackouts.
The reason people got into an issue there is if they were on a spot rate. So it wasn't middle of the day when it hit 45 degrees. It was the middle of the night when it was freezing and everybody. So that was their peaker energy rates, right? So same thing in this situation. And he talked about on a theoretical basis, you would need more to realize material savings for AES. But if you're buying it on a spot rate and you're buying it in the summer at the middle of the night when there's excess capacity, electrons are quite cheap because there's a large surplus. So that's when you fill it up. In the middle of the afternoon, when it's, peaker rates, they're much more expensive if you're buying them on an hourly basis. So you're buying low and selling high. It does put more electrons on the grid, so the AES in their system gets less stressed during that kind of 4 to 7 p.m. in the summer range.
Yeah.
Thinking towards the future, how many of these facilities does your organization want in Indianapolis?
As many as possible.
Right now, we are just planning this one, but we would love to build more. We just have to find the right location.
I think you'll see these more adopted in the U.S. This is not the only one, by the way, in the city.
Correct. There is one that AES Indiana built on the southwest side of the Harding Street station.
That was their pilot facility to validate the technology. That was a couple years ago, and this one still has 2 years to be constructed. You'll see this roll out across the U.S. more and more as the grid continues to get more and more stressed. The other solution is you build, more power plants, but you don't need the power 24 hours a day. You only need it 3 or 4 hours a day. So that's an expensive proposition to build a power plant to only run it 4 hours a day. This is alternative B.
No. You do need it all the time. It's just like when you really need it, it's 3 or 4 hours. I'd say more like 5 hours a day.
And I appreciate the feedback. Ultimately, what I'm trying to get at is, and you guys are doing the right things, but it's finding the savings for the citizens of Indianapolis. Ultimately, that's what I'd like to see.
As you continue to see more and more of these, it should either, one, bring it down incrementally, or B, and more likely, as your load demand keeps going up, it'll keep it from rising.
Yeah. How much was it again?
Because the other trigger is AES eventually builds more power plants for just that peaker rate.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, but it's all funded by the taxpayers, the problem. And if these become a utility, then it'll be eminent domain, which means they can put them anywhere the fuck they want.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are you able to share, what's the capacity of the site, megawatt hours? And are you planning to bring it all online on day one, or will you scale to that over some period of time?
It'll be 130 megawatt, 4-hour system, so 520 megawatt hours every day from day one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your presentation, you have a sentence that says this abatement is 100% necessary to keep this project viable and competitive on a national scale. I was hoping you could expand a little bit on why the abatement is needed to keep the project going.
So understand that most of these we don't put in city limits, right? Because you're getting double taxation, city and the county. So in this situation, you have a stress grid, and so we've identified this location. Other than the cost of electrons, property taxes is our second highest bill that we pay on an annual basis. So when you're benchmarking this site against Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas and New Mexico and the rest of the MISO, Louisiana, and also Georgia and other ones, you're evaluating really two factors. It's what can you buy and sell the electrons for, and then your second one is property taxes. So what that's doing is getting our property taxes, and again, you'll see it's only 5 years on a 40-year project, and it's a fairly small number, but that gets us back to the benchmark rate that we can approve with internal financing. Did that answer your question? Making it more competitive against the other states.
It did. Thank you.
Councilor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair.
Plus, it's three. Here's the crazy part. So they actually have it on here. Is that over a 40? I mean, to be fair, at least from the outside looking in, it makes sense. You're $3.5 million over 5 years, so it's less than $1 million a year. Like when you have a $1.6 billion budget, it's really not that big of a deal. But 5 years is actually $6 million. So just even then, like $1 million is nothing, especially because you're still going to be paying for the next 35 years, and property taxes are not going to go down.
This energy grid, what kind of impact it has on an environment? I guess it seems like it would have some kind of environmental effect.
There's not much of an environmental concern.
It's all contained.
There's no exhaust, no emissions.
What about the soil?
I'm sorry?
What about the soil?
Only if
nothing in the soil.
It's not a brownfield when the site's done. Yeah. Minimal impact. Again, cut down as few trees as possible. Considering the projects I do, this has about as minimum impact on that piece of dirt as what we work on.
He doesn't understand how this whole thing works. That's the best part. Gibson doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
I guess I'm a little concerned. I guess, so you're not, is it any environmental impact or just some or none?
You gotta dig up the dirt.
The electricity comes in, fills up the battery, goes back out. That electricity does supply, in essence, like a mini split HVAC unit on the side of each unit. There's no emissions, no gases, no CO2, no noise outside the property lines.
No runoff from stormwater or anything that would be.
Are you operating in any other states?
Yeah.
Are you currently operating in any other states or cities?
No, we do not have.
This is your first project?
No, our first project that would be operating is down in Texas.
Yeah.
But that's starting construction soon.
So
no project is fully up and running.
Correct.
For Peregrine Energy, so this team is 12 gigawatts in. 12 gigawatts, by the way, to give you an idea, a natural gas plant is 500 megawatts to 1 gig. So this team has developed, in essence, about 12 to 24 natural gas plants worth of property. So he touched on that at the beginning. So what Peregrine Energy is, and what Han did, he took the best and brightest from the Nexteras, the Baker Hughes, because they were good at lands, put all those into one company and move forward. So that is Peregrine Energy. So Peregrine's new.
Correct.
The development team is experienced in the country. The only other company maybe larger than this field would be maybe a Nextera, which is the development spinoff arm of Florida Power and Light.
Who else in the country has a site like this, like you're proposing?
Fort Worth. You can go. There's one operating in Fort Worth. Next time you fly to DFW, you're about 30 minutes away. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
So you're going to see these being developed across most of the Sun Belt, MISO, which is the central part of the country. Texas has no less than, in 2025, there'll probably be 10 to 20 of these built in Texas alone, because their grid is very highly stressed.
Yeah. Well, it's a hybrid grid, too.
Councilor Evans.
And if I may, I'm so sorry. Just to add on that, The reason there's not more is the interconnection timeline. Is this a 2022?
This is MISO 2022.
So we've been waiting on a permit from the governing body since 2022. If that sped up, you'd already see billions of these being built. That's the holdup.
Regulations and permits.
Thank you, Leader.
Just like
I just
BNS.
wanted to say I'm really excited about the project. In fact, if you guys are looking for another location, talk to me. I've got some spaces in my district. This is the future in my eyes. This is how we're going to get people off the grid system from the current energy companies of coal and gas and everything that's consuming their pocketbooks.
Dude, are you that fucking stupid where you think that's going to be it? Where do you think these coal companies are going to transition to? They're just going to own the same thing, whether it's wind or solar or natural gas. Oh, we're going to get people off the grid. Motherfucker, you're still always going to be on the grid. You're on the grid at your parents' house, you dope.
For people to get on solar and wind and those things, you have to have this product out there in order to have the moments of energy that can be saved to be used at those high points. So that's been the issue with solar and those type of energies for some time. So it's great to see this actually coming to life in our city. I was familiar with the AES project, the pilot project they did, I think about 2 years ago maybe. So I'm actually really excited about this because this is the thing that as it evolves can help communities and cities. Unfortunately, in our city, we're not allowed to create another utility company given state law. But if we could, I'd be the first one to be advocating for such a thing to get the hell away from AES. But that said, I'm super in support of this project. And if you guys need another location, come talk to me. I got some spots in my district.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to proposal number 346? Councilor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Leader. I just want to thank Develop Indy and the folks from DMD for bringing this to my attention a few months ago. I did meet with these folks, and we had a great meeting. So I'm looking forward to getting the support from the team and the committee members here as well on this project. So
I'm going to explain it to you since you guys are dopes. All right, let's say you have AES. Whoops. Let's say you have AES right here, right? AES. All right. And then you're going to have solar right here. All right. Now, is Jared Evans is saying, I can't wait to get them off the grid. I can't wait for people to get off the grid. Well, guess what, motherfucker? How do you think people get on the grid? All of these homes, which are labeled as H, are from AES, right? Well, those power lines are already there. So say AES has their own solar utility. Guess what? You're still owned by AES. Dumb fuck. Are you that fucking stupid? People just aren't magically off the grid. You still have to have some way of getting electricity to your home, unless you're going to power your home with your own batteries, with your own solar, or with your own wind. And the problem is that you have dopes on here that like Jared Evans over here, jobless Jared Evans, or dipshit Nick Roberts, who don't understand how bills work, how electricity works, and they're just going to constantly be toxic people, very dishonest, actually just dumb honest. And that's what they're constantly going to be doing. So remember, you're always going to be on the grid unless you create your own grid, which would be by solar, by water, by wind, and then you'd have to have your own batteries, however much money those are, and then you'd have to be very particular on what you spend your electricity on. You can't just be having a bunch of lights on and all the time, because you still got to do laundry, you still have your fridge or your heater, and if you want to be off natural gas, well, guess what? Now you don't have a gas water heater, or you don't have a gas stove. Oh, you want to be an electric stove? Okay, so who are you going to pay for that? Are you going to have your own electricity grid? And this is the problem with Jared Evans, is that he's never been challenged on any of the things that he's talking about. And I hope whoever runs against Jared Evans, demands a debate with him and just calls him out on every single dumb thing that he's ever done.
So thank you, gentlemen, and DMD and Develop Indy as well. Thank you all.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion.
So move, Madam Leader. Second.
The motion been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The committee members here as well on this project. So thank you, gentlemen, and DMD and Develop Indy as well. Thank you all.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion.
So move, Madam Leader.
Second. The motion been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is proposal number 347, approves the 2025 budget of the Woodruff Place Economic Improvement District.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Missy Ellis. I'm the president of the Economic Improvement District Board of Directors, and this is Hannah Saunders. She is the treasurer. I think you have copies of the budget there before you. Our EID exists for the purpose of historic preservation of all the special amenities that we have in Woodruff Place, and I would just right now give you a little invitation to stop by if you've never been there before. It's quite an interesting place to see. In conjunction with the two other governing boards, our 501c4 and our 501c3, we're able to fund many of the items that you see listed in the left-hand column there. Clearly not all of them, because some of them are extremely ambitious, but we tried to spread our money kind of percentage-wise among the various historic amenities. So there's some money going to our town hall this year. There's some money going to our large fountains. We have 9 fountains in the neighborhood, and we're going to try to light the 3 largest ones. Statues and urns, I skipped streetlights. There's 74 vintage streetlights in the neighborhood. We're going to work on repairing the streetlight poles on some of those. There are about 85 statues, urns, and pieces of public art. We're going to put a little money toward that. And we've spent a lot of money on working on our tree canopy in the last 3 or 4 years. The $7,500 that's allotted there will just cover 1/6 of the neighborhood in getting that tree canopy cleaned. Our last item is we got a recoverable grant from the good folks at the Local Initiative Support Corporation, and they've allowed us to pay that back very slowly over a period of years. So we'll be paying them another $3,000 this year, and that comes up to almost the $45,000, which will be our disbursement over the course of the year in the 2 different tax cycles. And we have a little bit of a cushion in case anything comes up. So that is everything.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Questions from councilors? Councilor Barth.
This all makes sense to me. I was just curious about your process of developing this. Is there some kind of a public input period of time, or does the board do it all on its own? Just curious how the
we actually take input from all our different project managers. That's how we come up with all these different numbers, and we're extremely organized. There's like committees that represent all these different volunteer organizations who put this work together, and so we take input from them, and then we do it as a small group of leaders among the 3 boards, and then we ask our boards to vote to approve before we submit our budgets further. The budgets of the other organizations will be approved at different meetings in the next few months. Sure.
Additional questions, comments? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to proposal number 347? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
The motion been properly moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your presentation. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 348, approves the 2025 budget of the Greater Virginia Avenue Corridor Economic Improvement District.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Michael Taft. I own a property at 1315 Shelby Street, which is within the Greater Virginia Avenue Corridor Economic Improvement District, which is a little bit of a mouthful. But I'm here tonight to give you a quick review of what we've accomplished in the last year, and then a little bit of a preview of our proposed 2025 budget in front of you. I believe there is a presentation. Is that possible to share that on the screen? Oh. Yes. Oh.
You can just walk us through it.
Sure. Let me pull it up real quick. To give you a brief overview of the EID, it is essentially Virginia Avenue, and then between, I guess that would be South Street and Prospect. So through Fletcher Place and Fountain Square, and then there are some spurs that continue along Prospect and Shelby. We have a tax on the lineal footage of commercial space on that corridor, and through that tax, which was a voluntary EID that you might remember in 2018 was approved. We collect about $80,000 of supplemental tax dollars, and then have a board of primarily commercial property owners that kind of allocate those funds every year. Our priorities are typically maintenance, safety and beautification, economic development, and marketing. Generally speaking, we try to focus on just very practical matters of kind of helpful services and amenities to businesses and building owners that it doesn't make sense necessarily for them to do individually for all of their separate buildings, and we can save a lot of money and have a lot of efficiency through kind of collective action and funding. To give you a brief idea of 2014 or 2024, we pay a significant portion of the maintenance of the fountains that are kind of our namesake, including the winterization and routine maintenance of those. Those approximately $20,000 a year in total cost. We pay, I think, $7,500 of that. We have a contract to do some mowing and litter cleanup in various parts of the district that are not quite hit by any other owners or any other kind of service providers. And then we have a supplemental off-duty officer that will do some extra patrols, typically on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, generally about 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And that's really kind of a direct response to kind of the needs of local business owners. And it's primarily we see it as a perception of safety issue. We really don't have a huge crime issue in the neighborhood, but there is a perception where we have a lot of visitors from outside of Indianapolis, either other cities or visiting from other parts of the state. And they really view, via the cultural trail, the corridor as an extension of downtown. So we really think it's important to be viewed as just as clean as the convention kind of district, and just as safe and just as amenitized. And that it brings a lot of value to the vendors and the property owners in the district. And then we've done a lot of public space programming and really improved our social media over the last year. Really have a lot of exciting hosted events that we partner with the Merchants Association to put on, and have a lot more exciting plans in the future using matching funds with grants, that sort of thing. Because we have consistent dollars, we can really easily match funds for grants, and have seen a lot of success thus far in leveraging our tax dollars for even more economic impact. Looking ahead to 2025, we are continuing many of our existing contracts that are working well. We are looking for more opportunities to kind of have simple, like, okay, can we pay somebody with a bucket and a scraper to go clean up gum once a quarter? And like that alone, if you can just hit the whole corridor, it makes a huge difference. And then we're also actively pursuing a lot of wayfinding and signage. So it really is important to create a sense of brand presence and a sense of place in this corridor. So we're working a lot of concepts for kind of some more permanent signage and wayfinding throughout the district. Because a lot of people that wander down from downtown end up at Shelby and Prospect and that intersection and have no idea which direction, things that are happening are. So we're trying to have a lot more dynamic and helpful signage. So that's a quick overview of everything that we've been doing so far and have ahead of us, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Questions? Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of questions, comments. I'm down there all the time. I frequent Fountain Square quite a bit. In fact, I park there, get on the bicycles and ride north and come back usually. So,
what for?
In Councilor Jones's district, you guys have done a really good job since creating this EID, and really proud to support that and continue to see the work that y'all are doing. There was some news, I think, this morning in the IBJ. Can you speak to that? Because I don't have a subscription to the IBJ.
The venue expansion?
The only base thing.
Yes, that's a very exciting announcement. I think MOKB has been studying different ways to make their expansion more permanent. I think they opened the Hi-Fi Annex during COVID and then found a huge demand for that size of venue. So we're very excited to see them have that success continue and make it more permanent.
How big is that venue going to be?
I believe 1,200 standing room.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Additional questions? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to Proposal 347? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
The motion has been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
Thank you.
I may have said the
Madam
wrong
Chair, for the
number. That
record.
was 348. Did I say the wrong number? Okay, yeah, 348. Mr. Clerk, we'll try this again. Proposal 367.
Jeez. Still trying to figure this thing out, huh?
Bingo.
Bingo.
Good
What's
evening.
his name?
Councilors, with consent, we're going to go back to the top of the agenda for Proposal 367. Do I have consent? Proposal 367 reappoints Kathy Good to the Marion County Property Tax Assessment Board of Appeals. If you want to share why you're interested in continue to serve in this capacity.
Well, that's what I do. I am in appraisal. I'm a regional manager for an appraisal company, and it is very interesting and very worthwhile for my time to spend helping make decisions on property values.
Wonderful.
So, and I am the level 3 that's on the board.
Great, thank you. Questions? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to, oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Hart? Yes, sir. Sorry.
No worries. I just have a quick question. I've had a couple interactions with some folks that ultimately lead to your office, and I'm just kind of curious, well, your office so much, but your board, are you seeing increases in folks coming to the PETA board?
No, not a lot. It stays pretty steady. Of course, we do have some times where it does increase, but we're the final part that you come to see. You initially see the assessor's office that has hearing officers, so a lot of that's done prior to them coming in.
Right. They basically come to you after they've missed 3 biannual payments, correct? Or are there anybody?
No. The people that come to the PETA BOA are, of course, we go through and we approve anybody who's asking for tax exempt status.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we look at. The other thing is your property value. When you get your Form 11, you think it's not correct, that it has gone up too much or it's too high, your first step is to contact the assessor's office, and they go through some of the hearing. Most of the time it's resolved, but if they can't come to a resolution, then it comes to the PETA BOA.
I see. Yeah, most of the interactions I've had have been people who have missed many.
No, that's tax sale. That's still with the auditor's office.
Gotcha. Not good situations. My curiosity was if that number was going up, that was going to be a bad thing. But
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Additional questions?
Here we go.
Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
The motion has been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening.
The next item on our agenda is proposal number 349, amends portion of the revised code of the Consolidated City and County in Chapter 744 Development Standards.
All right. We're almost there. We're like 20 minutes away.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Shannon Norman, and I'm a principal planner for the Department of Metropolitan Development in Ordinances and Code Revision. As an aside, I also had my first date at the city market, if anybody's keeping track. So, tonight, the purpose of meeting with you is to discuss Proposal 349, which would amend the zoning ordinance as it relates to outdoor advertising signs or billboards and sign maintenance. Next slide. I'm going to keep my comments brief because I know we have some members of the public who'd like to speak, but the purpose of these proposed amendments really stems from some action that came at the beginning of this year at the state of Indiana's proposal that would change how billboards would be regulated within Indianapolis, Marion County, as well as other municipalities in the state. As many of you are aware, this is not the first time that billboards has come up in Indianapolis. But this is the latest iteration of proposed changes. We have two reasons for addressing this in the ordinance, but first I want to talk to you about timeline. Again, January of 24, this went to the State House, it was withdrawn, and we were given the task to meet with the billboard industry and to see if there were areas of compromise that would keep this issue local, which of course has been DMD's main focus. We have been regulating billboards here since 1958. That's taken many different shapes, but it's been on the books since 1958. In 2002, billboards were prohibited within 465, so the area in the compact area, it is prohibited to put a new billboard there. 2017 through 2019, we did a comprehensive look at the sign ordinance, and again, at that time, it was reaffirmed that billboards would be prohibited inside I-465. So we have policy that leads us to this place. We have regulations that lead us to this place, but most importantly, maintaining local control means that we get to exercise the same zoning powers that are afforded to communities all over Indiana. There are 8 other communities in central Indiana that are more restrictive by prohibiting entirely the erection of billboards. So we feel like our regulations right now are very good. But we understand that there is some appetite and there is a desire by the billboard industry to establish more of a balance and to, in fact, make some changes that would be more favorable to their construction. So again, as far as timeline, we've met with the billboard industry, we've offered meetings with the billboard industry, we've met with the community, we've met with some of you to talk about what our regulations are currently, and so now we find ourselves having a draft out for public comment. DMD has met with other communities, talked to other communities, and also tried to gauge where we are in terms of maintaining local control. And we find that the draft that's been presented and proposed to you does strike that balance, but it also reaffirms the policy that's been passed as recently as 2019. Another thing I'd like to mention is that the purpose of zoning in this case is to separate land uses that could be in conflict. It's to further the comprehensive plan, and it's really to protect and preserve not only communities, but also commercial industry and other land use. So I want to talk a little bit about what that means in terms of striking a balance. So the next slide will show you that we have some areas of compromise. The billboard industry gave us a proposal, and we found that there were several areas included here of development standards that we felt there was reason or there was research out there that said that we could loosen these requirements. I won't read all of these. In general, I think we're talking about increasing or decreasing setbacks, separations, different things like that, especially when it comes to I-465. The biggest thing is the one policy point that we are making is that if you have a legally established non-conforming billboard, you could relocate it on the same property. Now, that doesn't mean that you can move it to another property. That means it would have to be on the same property where it currently exists and would have to meet all of the standards for setback, separation, distance from protected districts. So it's an area of compromise, but at the same time, again, striking a balance, we still retain some of the control to site different signs. There were some areas where we can't make compromises, and I think that those areas are directly related to how we allow things, uses, and also how we permit things. We would not allow new billboards within I-465. Again, relocation on the same property is not construction of a new billboard. You would still have to have an improvement location permit for a new billboard or a relocated billboard. There would still be a required separation for protected districts, and that would remain at 300 feet. That is something that we've heard from at least 10 different neighborhood organizations, that is something that remains sacrosanct in terms of development standards, and that is being able to keep these land uses separated. Outdoor advertising signs would not be permitted on buildings. This is just for the structure that are outdoor advertising signs, and there would be no regulatory shot clock by which you could apply for a permit, and if it was still being reviewed by BNS or by DMD, that you would automatically get your permit. We receive about 10,000 permit applications per year, and signs are structures. The average review time right now sits at about 12 days for a sign permit, so that's far less than many other types, and we're doing very well considering our communities around us as well. So the last point I'd like to hit on before moving on to the testimony is, I think keeping this issue local means a couple things. If there are land use cases related to billboards, there would still be input from the public and communities and yourselves as interested parties or notified parties to these cases. I think the other thing is that because other communities do something is not always the best reason, but we have also shown that we are not the most restrictive. We are not stopping billboard use. We are not worsening the case. These changes make the case better for the billboard industry. They're not losing, they're gaining. I think that I'll stop there. I'll answer any questions you might have. But again, I'd like to cede my time to the public that is here. Thank you.
I'll take care of the public testimony. Comments from councilors. Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Shannon, I want to thank you for all of your work that you put into these revisions. My hat's off to you, everything you've done there. I think what you describe is that these revisions are our best option here for a couple of reasons. One, we keep this 100% locally issue. I mean, it's ours. And secondly, I think along the same lines is I appreciate how the neighborhoods came together and really led to some of this compromise here to ensure that we keep it locally. So that's number one point I want to make. Then the second point I want to make is that the industry in itself still has a chance to continue to do business, and they have some gains here. And so at the end of the day, there are no losers here. It sets us all in a good phase to go forth, and I encourage my colleagues to support it.
I think anybody who is getting money from Reagan Outdoor and Advertising are probably not going to be in support of it.
I can applaud the work that you put in to get to this point to with the sort of the threat that you faced initially with this. I just wanted to state that I'm willing to support this tonight, but I think it still needs some more revision with regard to the digital stuff. There remains. And I appreciate the inside 465 versus outside. Much of my district is outside 465, but I hear the things you're saying inside 465. But outside 465, I have on both for billboards and for on-premise signage. There's a strong demand, really frankly a need for digital signage. We heard in the Education Committee the other night that there are 87 languages spoken in Perry Township schools.
Yeah,
and
we got to limit that down to one.
Billboards are lucky if, many of them are English only. Sometimes you might be able to get a bilingual.
Womp
If
womp.
you want to be able to reach the population that exists in my district, you need the flexibility that digital provides.
No thanks.
We're still not there with this, so I'll support this tonight, but I hope we continue to keep working on that to expand that availability. Thank you.
Yep, Councilor Hart.
Yeah, I just want to say I thoroughly respect Councilor Cahill's position, and that was a very, very true statement. There was a lot of languages spoke there. But I have to say the other side, for my folks in my district, I hear the complete opposite. I've never actually heard anybody in favor of digital, always in opposition. So I do like what you've got here in the packet that really just keeps it to the price packs and locations, and I just want to make sure that I'm representing my folks adequately on the committee this evening.
Can you speak to who the compromise was with? Because I've gotten mixed messages. Were you compromising, was it the city and the neighborhoods, or was it actually the city, the neighborhoods, and the folks in the industry? I'm a little confused about
Sure.
the feedback.
Thank you, Leader Lewis. That's a really good question. After the Indiana General Assembly sort of gave us the direction to meet with the industry, that's what we did first. We met with the industry as a whole. So that was, we invited all of the industry folks that have inventory in Indianapolis and in Marion County. So I believe on that set of calls, maybe 5 different companies were represented. So we met there first. We asked them to give us a unified proposal because they were not on the same page. They had not decided on what they wanted from Indianapolis, Marion County. They were working with the state. So that was our first set of meetings. What DMD then took the ordinance and we refined it. We looked at the policy points. We came up with, DMD, myself, we came up with a draft. And at that time, we shared it with the industry, and then we met with the neighborhoods. We met with some of the counselors. We started that push. In this iteration, the neighborhoods and the industry and the city were not at the same table. We heard all of those perspectives, but judging from the experience of the task force from 2017 to 2019, we have 2 very, very different opinions of how to regulate billboards. Now, what we learned here is that compromise sometimes means that you see the greater good. You may not want to change, but you can see the greater good. And I believe that that's where we got with the neighborhood. So that it was never a 3-way conversation this time, but the city made sure to reach out to both individual parties.
Thank you. And thank you for all of your efforts.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In speaking to some of my neighborhood organizations, one of the questions that came up relates to, is this really necessary? Like, why are we proposing to make the change? So if you could hit on, I think I know the answer, but I think it's really important that the public understands really specifically why we're making these changes.
I think, and I speak for DMD as well as the administration in this, is that our goal here is to keep this local and understanding what was discussed at the state level without us coming to some sort of compromise. This would definitely be on the agenda for the state at the next session. I don't know if it will be next time, but what I do know is that we have done yeoman's work at keeping everyone updated on what we've done to get to that compromise that was asked of us last January. So the answer of why is essentially there are some issues of local zoning that are best decided and set into policy at the local level, and this, I believe, is one of them. And you can see that not only the 8 communities within central Indiana that have prohibitions, but the hundreds of communities across the state. We have 4 states in the United States that ban billboards altogether.
Oh, really?
4. So this is an issue that is
really
perennial in some ways, but it's also one that if we keep a hold of it and we continue to hold on to that policy that's been reaffirmed, we, I think, have a better chance at keeping it local.
Oh, yeah. Vermont, Alaska, Hawaii, and Maine. I could see Hawaii and Alaska for sure. Maine and Vermont, did not expect that.
But also looking at the fact that the zoning ordinance is a living, breathing document. It's something that sometimes does need to be amended, and maybe these compromises or minor revisions will lead us to a place of better understanding of the industry in the future.
I can't believe we're like 20 minutes talking about billboards.
Additional comments from councilors? Counselor Barth?
I know you mentioned, and you mentioned in other conversations that you did a lot of outreach. Can you, I believe I saw at one time some letters of support from neighborhood organizations. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, we did receive letters of support from Historic Urban Neighborhoods of Indianapolis, HUNY. We also received a letter of support from the Marion County Alliance of Neighborhood Associations, McCanna. Both those organizations were represented at the MDC public hearing and testimony, and also we received supportive testimony from the Pike Township Residents Association. So that's what came in prior to the hearings that have already been.
Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Leader Lewis. I guess I'm somewhat, and I don't, this is more of a comment.
Pay attention to this shit. They always like rub their eyes or like look down, or it's like go like this. Andy Nielsen does the you know, I don't know, and then Barth and Evans both do the cinching of the nose. It's so fucking annoying. I don't know why, but it's just so annoying.
I'm going to support this tonight, but in some part, I go back to what I've said earlier in meetings. You've pointed out multiple times that there are cities way beyond us on this, and I think Indianapolis should not be moving the needle. If the state legislature so chooses to have this battle over there and want to address it, then let them address it, because it's not just going to be us they're going to be addressing it for. I understand the reasons for it and not wanting to gamble that with them. And then on the flip side of that, to Councilor Cao's point, I do think that there needs to come at some point a conversation about digital billboards and a ratio that can remove some of the billboards that are already in place in the city. I too represent an area that has many languages.
Yeah, that's a damn shame.
My comment.
Leader Mowry.
What a waste of a comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was kind of wrestling around whether I wanted to say anything or not, but with respect to the digital billboards, I agree that it offers an opportunity to have many different languages broadcast in specific areas to be area specific. So I think that could be a potentially great opportunity for billboards. So I think that'd be a great conversation to have alongside the varying languages that are spoken throughout the county.
Why are we even talking about this,
Another thing that I think of with digital billboards is the opportunity to have emergency broadcasting messages put out, silver alerts, amber alerts, inclement weather alerts, that right now, as it stands with our billboards, can't be done. They'd have to hang a sign and it'd be obsolete at that point. So that's another, from a safety side, I think that's another thing that we should look at too with these digital billboards. And as Councilor Evans said, I think I agree with that as well, is rationing it out so it's not all of them can do it, just a certain amount. So that'd be something I would love for us to take another look at. I know we kind of took a stab at that in 2019 and it didn't work then. However, having conversations with folks, and also conversations with people in the billboard industry and learning more about what these digital billboards can do and their capabilities.
You want to know why? Because if you go through the campaign reports, you'll see that Reagan Outdoor Advertising, I believe that's what it's called, they gave money to Brian Mowry. I think they gave money to Michael Paul Hart as well.
Is something that has opened my eyes to see that there are many other benefits outside of just an advertising piece, and the safety mechanisms are there to ensure that they're not distracting. I mean, we drive by things that are constantly changing, signages that change often, and we don't see correlation with accidents with that. And I know I've heard the argument that there is the privacy of, they're gathering my data. Well, one of the things I've thought about too is, you're giving more of your data away and more about yourself away on your Facebook than you are going by a digital billboard. So, with all the arguments in place, I think there's a definite opportunity to really re-examine this and look at these digital billboards. So I would encourage we do that. Thank you.
Additional comments from councilors? Do you have a sign-in list for the speakers? Speakers, you will be given 2 minutes to speak. Do you want to read your statement first before we start the public testimony?
It's empty.
Are they writing it down, or?
So before we open the floor to public comments, we would like to remind committee members and the public of a few ground rules. So everyone can have a fair chance to speak and be heard, it is important that we each observe the following rules. First, each speaker will be limited to 2 minutes. Second, any public comments must reasonably relate to the agenda item under consideration. Third, speakers who stray from the item under consideration or become unduly repetitive may be asked to move on to their next point or conclude their comments. Finally, attendees who cause disruptions that prevent the committee from proceeding through tonight's agenda in a reasonably efficient manner will be removed. Please remember that some types of threatening speech or incitement to violence are not protected by the First Amendment at all. We will deal with those issues if they come up, but we don't think they will.
How is that unknown?
Mr. Chair, the committee member asks for consent to adopt these rules. We can proceed with public comment.
You have consent?
Reagan Outdoor. There it is. Like
Please,
I said,
Crystal
Reagan
Lewis.
Outdoor.
Please state your name.
Good evening, Chairwoman
Outdoor
Lewis and
advertising.
councilors. My name is Pat Andrews. I'm here representing the Marion County Alliance of Neighborhood Associations. I chair the Land Use Committee for that organization. First of all, I want to thank Shannon Norman for all the work she did, but also there were a lot of neighborhood organizations and representatives peppering her with question after question, and she was very responsive, and we really appreciate that. The compromise that Ms. Norman arrived at is an acceptable compromise. It protects from rampant proliferation of billboards while reiterating the importance of certain development standards that impact the aesthetics and the quality of life of our community. Pivotal on all that is the requirement that there be a permit issued for even a relocation. And to compromise on that point is a basic safety issue. And that point was not compromised upon. There are other features that do benefit the Billboard company, that they can relocate within 465 if it's on the same parcel. But then they do have to meet all of the other development standards besides the existing height and size of the sign. Outside 465, it does not have to be on the same parcel. There's a number of issues that were also included in this proposal. I'm going to skip over those for brevity. Any relocation is a new billboard, and it has to meet all of the standards that are in place now. The billboard industry did benefit from this. They get an increase in height to 60 feet for new billboards, separation along the freeway, the same, sorry. We support this. Please pass it.
Hey, man, 2 minutes goes by quick.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tom Abiel. I'm currently president of Historic Urban Neighborhoods of Indianapolis, known more commonly by its acronym, HUNI.
HUNI.
I'd like to thank the city and especially Shannon Norman for the stakeholder meetings,
hurry, buddy. You're running out of
accessibility,
time.
and hard work to draft the ordinance that we believe overall is improved. HUNI believes that most proposed changes maintain and strengthen the community standards established by our local elected officials. Most importantly, the proposed ordinance maintains the long-standing ban on new billboards inside 465. This provision, no new billboards inside our 465, is one that billboard companies have failed to respect over and over for many years, filing numerous variances to overcome. McCanna and HUNI, among others, have remonstrated against variance requests of this kind nearly 24 times since 2017. With that in mind, it's worth repeating that some communities across the country have outright bans on billboards in their jurisdictions. Others have tighter restrictions. Indianapolis, over these same years, has continued to craft and maintain its own sense of balance, and the proposed ordinance is a positive step on this journey. With these thoughts in mind, UNI supports passage of the proposed ordinance. Thank you.
Damn, good. Well done. You got it before the 2 minutes.
Additional comments from folks in the audience? Any comments from counselors? Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
So move, Madam Leader.
The motion has been properly moved in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Thank you so much. The proposal motion passes. The last item on our agenda is a Downtown Economic Enhancement District update. Ms. Schaefer, always great to see you.
Madam Chair, in the name of brevity for a long meeting, you all have a presentation in front of you that offers a variety of highlights. If any of you all want to talk about any of those things, I am more than happy to do that. If it's okay, I will focus mostly on the EED timeline, and like I said, any of the data that's in there, you all we can have that conversation at your convenience. I would love to do.
We'll invite you back at a different day.
Perfect.
How about that? Okay.
So I'm here tonight in continuance of my commitment to you all for ongoing dialogue and transparency around the EED. As you might remember, a couple months ago when you passed the EED, we talked about coming in on the same timeline as the other districts that you heard from this evening to present our 2025 budget. After working with all the appointing authorities to get those 9 appointments to the board made, we realized that in last year's General Assembly session, the board itself isn't created, doesn't have power until January 1 of this coming year. So while those appointments have been made, they can't actually legally take action until that point. So while we're continuing to utilize the funds generously provided by the City of Indianapolis to ensure that the pilot program continues to have continuity, at the same time, we're looking to early next year to be able to talk about how we get that district stood up and what that timeline looks like, and I'm just here to be able to share that with you all this evening. What that means is, in early January, the board will convene for the first time. The board will be able to set up their own bylaws, their own governance structure, their own regulation, and be able to form a budget focused on those 3 areas that we talked about when the district was created: safety, cleanliness, and homelessness. That is, by statute, really the areas that they'll be able to focus on and be able to think about how that first-year allocation will occur.
Mostly because the homeless people are causing the uncleanliness, shitting everywhere, graffiti, laying their drugs out, same old, same old.
Then there'll be about, just like the other districts, a public notification will occur. A public hearing will occur later in the month of January. Those dates are not yet set up, but we know it'll have to be about 20 days after the first meeting. Then the board will be able to vote on that budget and be able to provide it to you all, hopefully for introduction in that February council meeting. Then it will go through the same process that the other districts did here this evening. I'll be right back here in front of you in just another couple of months in partnership with the board to be able to talk about what that budget looks like. And then hopefully be able to be passed out of this committee, be able to be passed by the full council. And then our deadline in conversations with our county commissioners is that they need all of that information no later than March 15th in order to continue to maintain the district timeline that we've previously talked about, for it to be on that spring 2025 bill for that assessment fee, and for that to continue to work throughout next year as it originally planned. So, like I said, just wanted to be able to share that with you all in the name of transparency and what that timeline will look like in the first quarter of next year.
You're the best. Thank you. Questions for Ms. Schaefer? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, we'll have you back. We'll invite you back. Thank you. Is there any other business before this committee? If not, entertain a motion for adjournment. We are adjourned.
There we go. Look at that. Almost 2 hours. Almost 2 hours. That last one was totally unneeded. It's like, okay, we'll have you back with all this report, but we just want to let you know what's going on. Like, all right, you didn't have to come to the meeting for that. An email would have been just fine. So very interesting, as usual. Taxpayers are getting fucked while billionaires are making more money. And then Jared Evans is a dope. John Barth is a dope. The energy storage is something that I'm going to have to keep an eye on. I need to be able to see if I could find the one on the southwest side for sure, and their pilot program. If they said it was 3 years ago, I definitely wasn't aware of it back then, it being 2024 now. But there's another video that I still have to do that'll be done this weekend. That was an easy hour and a half. But until next time.